we are going to review the area and circumference of a circle. You can listen to what I say and then pause the video to take notes and then start the video again to listen to the next section. So the radius of a circle goes from the center to the outside of the circle. And there can be many radii. That's one, here's one, here's one. An infinite number of radii in the circle, but they're all the same length. The diameter of a circle is like this one. It goes from one side of the circle to the other, and it goes through the center of the circle. Now, if you look, from the center to this edge is one radius. From the center to this edge is one radius. So two of those, two radii, equal one diameter. So if you knew what the diameter was, you could just divide that in half to find out the radius. So the radius would equal the diameter divided by 2. Okay? Now, I've written down the definitions of a radius and a diameter, and I want to remind you of the formulas. Area equals pi r squared. Circumference, there are two formulas. Circumference equals 2 pi r, or circumference equals pi d. Now, if you are doing an area problem, you're going to need, if you have a diameter, you're going to need to figure out the radius by dividing that diameter in 2. If you are figuring out a circumference problem, it depends on which they give you in the problem. If they give you a radius, use this formula. If they give you a diameter, use this formula. Also, think about area is always in square units. Circumference is always in units. If you think about the circumference, it's like you're taking a piece of string and wrapping it all the way around the edge of the circle. And then if you straightened that piece of string out, you would get, you could measure it with a ruler. It's sort of like perimeter for a circle. Now, the next thing we need to do is figure out how to solve equations, solve problems that have area and circumference. So we are going to look at a problem. If I had something that was 10-inch radius, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to write down my formula first. That's what you always do, write down the formula. Area equals pi r squared. Now I'm going to substitute in for pi and for radius. So I'll say area equals 3.14. Notice that I'm putting it in parentheses because it's easier with decimals to use the parentheses to indicate multiplication. Now, r squared, my radius is not just 10, it's 10 inches. I'm going to put the units inside here. And that whole thing is squared. That means that I'm going to square the 10 and I'm going to square the inches. So my next step is area equals 3.14. 10 squared equals 100, right? So I put 100. And then inches times inches would give me square inches, or inches squared. And it's really important that you show those units as you're doing your problem. Don't just wait till you get to the end and put inches squared at the end. Include them in the parentheses. If you put them outside of the parentheses, that would not be right because then you're not going to be squaring those units. So this is going to equal, area equals 314 square inches, or inches squared. Now, if I am going to figure out the circumference, I'm going to write down a formula for the circumference. My two formulas are circumference equals 2 pi r and circumference equals pi d. Since I know the radius, I'm going to use this as my formula. So circumference equals 2 pi r. I start by writing down the formula for just about any kind of problem I want to solve. That's how I'm going to start. Then I'm going to substitute in 2 times 3.14 times and it is 10 inches. Now there's no squared here, it's just 10 inches. Now it's usually easier a lot of times it's easier to multiply the two whole numbers first, but with it being 10, it doesn't really make that much difference. When I multiply this, 2 times 10 would be 20, and then if I multiplied, you can probably do that in your head, but if you have trouble, you could always go over on the side and do it this way. And you would get 62.8 inches. It's not inches squared. If you don't remember to put your inches all through the problem, I'm going to count off. Now, if you had another problem, if I gave you a problem that I gave you the diameter, you would do it a little bit differently. So let's say the diameter equals 4 centimeters. Now, if I want to find the area, I'm going to have the radius, because area equals pi r squared. It doesn't say anything about a diameter, so I have to divide this in half. So half of 4 is going to give me 2 centimeters. So now I substitute in and I do area equals 3.14 times 2 centimeters squared. The squared is on the outside. Then I multiply that out. I get area equals 3.14 times 4 centimeters squared. 3.14 times 4 is going to give me 12.56 centimeters squared. Now, I don't want you using a calculator. I want you to figure out this multiplication by yourself. I've done this problem so many times that I already know that that's the answer for that one. Now, if I were going to find the circumference of that same problem, I would choose C equals pi d as the formula that I'm going to use. Then I simply substitute in C equals 3.14 times, and that the diameter is 4 centimeters. Now I can multiply, and I get C equals 12.56 centimeters. Now, 2 centimeters or 2 of whatever unit, that's the only one where they both come out to be the same way, because 2 times pi is 4, and 2 times 2 is 4, and 2 squared is also 4, so they both come out the same way on this particular problem. That won't happen with most of them.